there and, picking up on sort of, I guess, the energies and things. But when it kind of gets right down to it, the 1906 letter that Sarah Winchester built after the 1906 letter that was after the earthquake, and that had destroyed apparently a third of her work. And she then confessed that the house looked like a crazy person had built it. and it does say it's unclear whether she was taking, her building directions from spirits, as, sort of the story goes, or that she held, and that she did hold nighttime seances in the peaked turret room known as the Witch's Cap, which is, if you've ever been up to the turret in Casa Loma?
Yes.
Okay, so inside the turret with the peaked roof, and you've got the wooden beams and all the exposed. It's just like that.
Yep.
That's it. When
just
I
like
see
that.
it, that's what I think.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a room that has that pitch in the ceiling and the same feel to it, right? But it's more wood inside because it's a wood structure. I mean, Casa Loma is too. I mean, that stone is just a facing, right? So it's that same, those wooden exposed beams and that pitched roof and that. So it's called the Witch's Cap. And this is apparently where she would deliver new building plans to her foreman every morning. Wherever those plans came from, this was where she presented them to her foreman, was in this room called the Witch's Cap, which is at the very top of the house. On the third floor. And so, and I think too, when we look at Sarah Winchester, I kind of look at Queen Victoria. It's when Queen Victoria lost
Albert. That's an interesting comparison.
But think about it, right? When Queen Victoria lost Albert, she continued to wear black widow's weeds for the rest of her life. She never came out of mourning.
Right.
And she started doing a lot of things that people thought were very out of character for a queen, especially, but also for a woman in her standing. So when you read about some of the things that Queen Victoria started to, I think she always had a love for certain things, but when Albert died, she was a terrible mother, apparently, Queen Victoria. She was not good with her children. She really didn't even want children. She just had them because she had to. And she really was rather disinterested in them at a point until they got to be children. When they were babies, she really wanted nothing to do with them. So, once they were able to kind of look after themselves and walk and talk and that, she took an interest in them. But prior to that, they essentially went to wet nurses and nannies. And so, not that Sarah did this, but the interesting thing is that there was this weird disconnect there in terms of that, but yet this huge attachment to Albert. And I think with Sarah, too, with her husband and having lost her daughter, there was this weird disconnect and then this strange attachment to her husband after that. And like Victoria, continued to wear the widow's weeds and do things that people thought were probably just a little odd. Right, in terms of what, but understandably, too, I mean, the mansion actually has 3 elevators in it, too. There's 3 elevators.
Really?
Elevators, yeah. And people don't think of that in a house that's built in that time, but elevators were a thing even in the late 1800s, right?
Yeah, you would think when it comes to elevators, quote, at that time, you think of like a dumbwaiter.
Hand cranks. Yeah, but these are legit elevators for
passenger
taking people
elevators.
up and down. Yeah, actual elevators. And there was apparently very high-tech devices to heat the house. So much like Casa Loma, we don't think about Casa Loma as being able to be heated at this monstrous structure, right? 130 rooms and going over, Casa Loma's 3 stories as well, plus your turret rooms, which are never warm anyways, but they have that massive coal boiler system down in the tunnel that would have heated that house through radiators and steam, which is probably much like this place. But just really interesting sort of, juxtapositions between the two, mostly because of the time period in which they were built. But I do find that the Winchester mansion, having 3 elevators is spectacular because no houses usually have these elevators.
Oh, no, I was not aware of that.
Mhm. But, then you add those, like you say, with the switchback staircases, and some rooms have really low ceilings. They're really, like, they feel quite claustrophobic. And the fact that this is an interesting thing, too, and I think that the switchback stairs were built to accommodate the diminutive Winchester. She wasn't quite 4'10", and she suffered from crippling arthritis.
She did, yeah.
But that doesn't really make sense for the staircases to just end nowhere. Like, the elevators, I get. The weird staircases, not so much. But, it's kind of an interesting thing. So Helen Mirren went on to say, too, that, this is her words from the article. I just want to, but before we get to that, because there's something really interesting here that I like. It says, the mystery surrounds Sarah Winchester. It grew all more intense thanks to the unusually close-knit bond she shared with her staff. So Winchester usually spent an unusual for the time amount of money making sure her servants lived in comfort and reportedly treated them like family. In return, the staff gave her unquestioning loyalty and never spoke to journalists about their unusual boss's habits or motivations. On the day she died, Sarah's servants walked away from the property, and in a move that was unheard of, even in today's era of tell-all books, they never spoke a word about her or what went on in the house. I think they probably felt very identified with the house, and because it was very much their house as it was her house. So that's an interesting thing that, they never, ever said anything about the house or Sarah Winchester. So anyways, it's interesting because they asked Helen Mirren about, the haunting of the house. And it says, as for the ghosts of the Winchester Mystery House themselves, Mirren, herself a skeptic, is unwilling to say for certain that the walls of the San Jose mansion are spirit-free. She goes, if it is haunted, and she says, looking around at all the well-appointed rooms, it is definitely haunted by something very benign. I feel sort of great being here. I feel a sweetness in the house. It's not horrifying. It's a sweetness. And if it's haunted by something sweet.
Right.
So,
well, it's certainly on my list now. As I say, I've been to the area, but not during my paranormal interest time. It is certainly one of the locations I've got on my list now. If I ever get there, that house is going to be a place I'm going to visit for sure.
I know it's such a cool, and I love that the film was shot there because then you really get to see the interiors of the house. And
right,
I thought that was a really
that, and it's the actual house itself that you see in the film.
Right.
Or there were sets built actually. There were sets built, but they were specific to the house itself. That you walked in to the actual set, and you went, "Oh, this is the room from wherever in the house." Yeah. It was very well done.
It was really well done. I mean, I enjoyed it as a film. I was kind of skeptical going into it. I was sort of like, it's one of these movies, and what are they going to do? But it was, it was kind of fun, and it was a little bit camp. But at the same time, I think they sort of respected. I think Helen Mirren was actually a really good choice.
She was a great choice to play the role.
In terms of Sarah Winchester and being able to bring that persona to people. And again, it's always difficult to play someone that you have no actual physical association to in terms of, that person was not alive in your lifetime. There isn't a lot of information on Sarah Winchester as to who she was, especially later in her life, other than, people writing sort of stories of her being crazy or, whatever the case may be. Because her servants never spoke about her, it's sort of a...
There's not a lot of information out there.
No, there isn't.
Of what she was actually like. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's difficult to play that with a sense of believability without making it appear to be, like overly camp or ridiculous, or and I think that they kind of tried to stay to the, I guess more to the mythology of the story of to why she, and again, I say that mythology, we don't know why she expanded those rooms. We don't know why she kept building on the house, but they played to the more obvious side of the stories, the
paranormal side of the story, right?
Yeah, to that, and less to the personal side of the story, because there wasn't a whole lot to go on there, I think, as as we know. But fascinating, so many interesting things, and I was just digging around in the archives of the Winchester Mystery House's media package, because they have this archive with all kinds of old articles and things that were written about the house before it became a museum and a property that. But one thing that's really great is the fact that they didn't bulldoze it down.
Right.
Like so many, unfortunately, so many historical buildings end up, it was great that somebody had the foresight to say, you know what, this would be the public wants to see this, because the public wanted to see it at the time she was building it.
Right. And after she passed away, all the construction stopped.
Right, exactly. So, that it stopped at that point. And like you said, literally, like the day after she died, all of her servants left the house.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So, let's talk about the hauntings, because there's some interesting things that that come up again and again with people talking about the hauntings at the Winchester Mansion. And one of them, of course, is that witch's cap room. This is the room that it was said that, like I said, that Sarah would give her instructions to her foreman who was building. They also believe that this is a place that she may have done seances, although she clearly had a room, and you can see it actually, because I was looking at it when I was doing the 3D walkthrough. I was wondering why the room was so oddly shaped, and now it tells me why. It's a parlor room. There's two of them, actually. They adjoin each other with the door opens into one section. But they both have coal fireplace, beautiful mantels, inserts, but they're in the corners of the room. And I say corners of the room, but there's no real corners, because while you would go to that corner has been cut off on a, sort of on an angle. And so there's no corners. So you can sort of see that in those rooms that they have no square corners. So interesting that, this was something that, whether it was an architectural feature at the time, because I've seen other sort of Queen Anne style and Victorian style homes with these rooms that don't have square corners in them. And so this is something that was said was because she would have these seances, and obviously she didn't want the spirit to, as we mentioned earlier, get trapped coming in and out of the space, in corners, right? Mm-hmm. So there is that. There's also like I say, the witch's cap, where people who do today go to do paranormal seances and things like that, they tend to gravitate to this space. People say there's a lot of feeling of communicative spirits in that area. The one thing that I feel probably about this house and why people gravitate to that is it's the third floor, where the servants all had their apartments and quarters. So it's probably the most active place in the house, just in general, in terms of when people were alive, as opposed to when there was no one there. And of course, Sarah died. She didn't really get up to the third floor, obviously, except for to see the foreman, and there is an elevator that goes up there.